But now, God, now I'm like, now you just made me nervous, and I wasn't nervous. No, but I'm really happy to be here. As Ari said, every time I come into this community, I feel like I'm coming home to my peeps. And I love that, because there's so many times, I mean, I don't know how many times y'all sit in these meetings and you're like the only person focused on customer marketing in an entire meeting, and you feel like you're on an island. So this is like the warmest, fuzziest island I've ever been on, so I love it. So a little bit about myself before I get started. And I forget who said it before, but someone said, I didn't study advocacy marketing in college. Shocker, right? And when I got into advocacy, it was back in the 90s, if you can believe that, and it was called referencing. And that's all we did, was take orders, fulfill orders, take orders, fulfill orders. And I did that at Computer Associates for a long time because, quite frankly, I didn't get the CSM job. So that's why I went into advocacy. So it was kind of funny because as I went along, I kept seeing, okay, I get the process, I get the impact, but there's gotta be a better way to do this, right? There's gotta be a better way to approach this. So went through the time at CA, did a little, going down my little career road, and did a sidetrack over to do some work in the distribution world because I wanted to understand how the indirect sales market worked for B2B. Learned a ton there at Ingram. Did a little trip down being an AE and carrying a quota. I don't like that. So I went right back into my happy place. Spent a little over 8 years at Oracle, hopped over to Genesis, and then just in the end of May, hopped over to BMC Software. So I've been doing this a while, and what I was telling, when we were talking about doing this, I said, I want to be able to share what I've learned, but also share so that other people can get their seat at the leadership table and keep that seat at the leadership table. Because it's one thing to go in and just present once to your ELT, it's another to be asked to be back over and over and over again. So I'm going to share a little bit about what I've learned doing that, what's worked and what hasn't. But you'll find, and anyone who's worked with me knows, I am not a PowerPoint person. I don't like a bunch of words on Power. I get it why people do it, but I have the hardest time presenting when there's words. So you're going to see some of my favorite characters represented in GIFs or GIFs, or I don't know. I'm probably saying the word wrong. GIFs? GIFs? What is the proper definition? I need Ashley here to look it up. Anyway, that could be a poll question, right? What is the proper pronunciation? So anyway, so you're going to see some characters that hopefully you recognize and you can appreciate too. So my first is, and we've heard a little bit about this, but I am always fascinated at where people sit within their organization. And I think that there's certain areas to sit that can show more pockets to success than others, and then it's okay to move that organization into another pocket or another business unit. So how many people here roll up into marketing? Looks like the majority. How many people roll up into customer success or CSS org? Wow, y'all need to get together. Anyone roll up into sales? Okay, I see you. Any other orgs that I've not named off? All right.
Product marketing specifically.
Product marketing, yeah. Product marketing. Okay, and I see product marketing. Product marketing. All right. So have you ever asked what would happen if I switched from one org to another? And what would I have to do differently? How would I have to approach that, right? It's a good litmus test for how comfy you are and how many stakeholders you have in your current organization. So case in point, when I went over to Genesis and I brought some of my team with me, we said, when I was negotiating the deal, I said, I have to roll up to sales. I have to roll up to the CRO because we need to get instant street cred in this environment where sales is like, hell no, you're not talking to my customers. So we were able to do that. I was able to negotiate that. That was the best place to start in that particular environment because of the angst that a lot of the AEs had for involving us. And I will tell you, I think that we had really fast success because of that. Then we got pulled into marketing, where all of a sudden we had this thing called a budget to work with, which we didn't have in sales. So it enabled us to really accelerate a lot of the things that we were already trying to do in sales, but just didn't have the budget to do it. So case in point, if you're in one org right now, just do yourself a favor and think about what would it look like if I did propose a change, right? How could I broaden my stakeholders by doing that? Because those stakeholders are your bread and butter. I have to let this play because I love this. But this is one of the most important things here is I'm a big believer of this because being at Oracle, every year, every 2 years, they change the sales structure, right? They're like, okay, we're gonna be focused on key accounts. Okay, now we're gonna be focused on industry. Oh, now we're gonna be focused on region. And then you're having to go and switch the way you're organized with every way the wind's gonna blow. You're never going to build a long-term relationship with your customers, your advocates doing that. So I am a big believer that you come up with whatever organization structure works for you and you stick to it and you preach as to why it works, right? So the structure that we have is, we've got someone focused on communities, we've got someone focused on the voice of the customer or customer programs, we've got, reference fulfillment, then we've also got customer engagement. I'm probably missing some pieces in there, but that model we know works. So when we left Genesis and went over to BMC, I literally was like, all right, this is the model we're employing. If you're gonna question it, peace out, I don't want it, right? So and what I would tell you is if you're ever moving to either another org or to another company altogether, stand your ground. You're probably the only one that knows how to do customer marketing out of everyone in that organization. So stand your ground. If you know a structure works, stick to it. And don't be afraid to ask for headcount. The other thing I would say is you've got to be confident. I think of this as, and I have funny analogies, y'all. So you gotta pour yourself a bowl of badass in the morning, but then pour a little bit of poise and grace over the top to soften that badass crunch, right? You have to do that some days. And then other days you can go in and be a lot more lighthearted and fun, but you have got to have that confidence, especially when you're going into executive situations continuously. And I can't preach that enough, because the minute you start feeling not confident about what you're talking about, they're gonna see right through it. And somebody in that room, whether it's a friendly or not, someone's gonna hone in on that. And I can't tell you how many situations I've been in with ELT, including CEO, where they come in after me and I'm like, no, I'm not switching. This is what we're doing. Deal with it. We're moving on. I'll show you the results later, right? You've got to go in like that. And let me tell you, I was sweating my face off in that situation particularly. I was so nervous. I was so glad I was on Zoom because my hands were going like this, right? But I was on Zoom so no one could see. But you've got to be able to go in with that confidence, because they will react to that in a very positive way. Confidence, not cocky, right? I would say the other thing on confidence is, and I think it was Allison who said this, and I don't know where there you are. You've got to know your stuff. So I loved what she said about knowing a couple of customer examples. I always go into every exec meeting knowing customer stories that I can use as proof points. I will never, ever, ever go into an executive meeting without having customer example, customer voice, truth points to be able to raise up, because guess what? They can argue with you, they can't argue with their customer. Never. And if they do, then I question their position. This is another thing. Expect that you're going to fall during your run. Expect that you're gonna fall. Expect that it's probably gonna hurt. Expect that you're probably going to feel like you're the only one who's fallen on that treadmill run. You're not. But the best thing you could do is get back on and keep doing it. If you believe strongly in your ability to have a seat at the executive table, do not give up on that. Just don't, because it's never going to come to you on a silver platter. You've got to continue to push for it, to the point to where, and Jenna, we talked about this a lot too, back when you were in Genesis, and you've got to continue to champion for yourself, because guess what? Nobody else is. So if you don't, then you're doing yourself a disservice. I think I talked about this a little bit, and this is my favorite, by the way, I love Moira. Again, don't go into the ELT meetings unprepared. I love to also go in with a story. So if I can tell a story about, that a customer's relayed to me, or a story about a situation, even if it's the top, you say it's even the CEO, they're gonna listen to a story. I don't know anyone who doesn't enjoy a good story. But in that story, take more words out than you think you need to. Don't have it go on for too long, right? Stories are great when they're short and impactful. And the ending of your story isn't so far down that everyone's sitting there going, pulling out their phone, right? You've got to make it crystal clear how you're getting to the end of that story and when you're going to get to it. And sometimes I'll even call out, give me 1 minute here, I'm going to tell you something, right? 1 minute's okay. You can ask for 1 minute. Give me 5 minutes, I'm going to tell you a story. I'm sorry, your CEO is going to whip out their phone. Or tell you, we're moving on to the next agenda item, Leslie, we're done with this, right? And then the other thing that I would say on this, and this is something that Brittany and I just went through, we were just presenting to our CEO, and we went and got coaching from my boss, from our CMO. It was the best thing we could have done going into there, because this is a new CEO. I've only had maybe 5 or 6 conversations with him. I've never presented to him solely, right? Except for interviewing, but having that feedback of what he's learned and what he's observed by being a direct of the CEO, that was invaluable. And shocker, Brittany hit a home run. So but it was because of that coaching. It's because we listened to someone who has done this before. Don't be afraid to ask for help, because guess what? Most people are going to want to help you. That was another tip that I couldn't find a Jiffy for it, but asking for help is okay. By anyone, right? I've had C-level execs ask for help. It's okay to ask for help. Coaching is one of them. I cannot stress that enough. This one, and this is, as I just mentioned before when I was referencing Jenna, ask for it. You have got to feel as though you not only are qualified, because I would say the majority of the people in this room are probably better qualified than anyone else at asking for a seat at the table to represent the customer's voice and what we're seeing as far as the needs are for customer stories, for customer validation, for customer amplification in a campaign, etc. We are way more qualified than someone else who doesn't do this professionally. We're way more qualified than someone else who might, yeah, customer stories are part of my purview. Oh, but I also am really focused on demand gen. And oh, I also focus on digital marketing. That's not the person that needs to be sitting at the table. I would tell you kind of a personal story. When I was at Oracle, I was super happy doing I was an engagement director, had my 5 customers that I got real deep with. I mean, these were my peeps, right? I knew them all really well. And I was happy with that. But then I started seeing things and I'm like, God, this could be done so much better if we did it like this. And I would go and try and bubble it up to my VP and the leadership. And they were like, no, that's different. We're not gonna try that. And I kept thinking, God, if I could just have a seat at that table, presenting to the CMO, we could change things. And that's where the whole passion came for getting a seat at that leadership table. Because I was perfectly happy in the job I was doing, honestly. It was great. But I was not able to make change happen at the rate with which it needed to happen. sitting in the IC role that I was in at the time and going, oh, but I see a better way. They didn't care. They didn't care. So one of the reasons why I switched over to Genesis, aside from the fact that, at Oracle you count the years in dog years, so that was 56 years or something. But aside from that, one of the things that drew me to Genesis was the direct engagement with the ELT. That was a huge draw. And they wanted to listen, and they wanted to hear what my perspective was and what the team's perspective was. So fast forward, that started to kind of change in the ecosystem at Genesis. So then I get this call from the CMO of BMC out of the blue. And he's like, hey, I've been watching what you've been doing on LinkedIn. I want some of that where I am. Can I have a conversation with you? I remember Johanna and Brittany we were sitting around my kitchen table and we were trying to figure out how are we going to meet our expectations for fiscal year 24 that were going like this, with a budget that went like that, and frozen headcount. We're like, God damn, how are we gonna do this? And I get this DM, hey, you wanna talk? And I remember, I think both of you at the same time were like, take the phone call. And because it was a direct line into the MLT. And I will tell you, that was probably the best move I ever made, because my CMO, Martin, he is the most inclusive CMO I've ever been around. He literally is like, yes, come into the ELT all of the time and present. Please do. You need to be constant and present there. So I can't say that it's really easy to find those unicorn CMOs, but if you do, don't be afraid to make the change. Look, we had a really happy, cohesive, wonderful team at Genesis, and it was a big shift to make that change. But I didn't see a direct path to get where we needed to go as far as the direct ELT, or TLT as it's called there, group. So I kept having to go through and around and push my way up, whereas I got this opportunity and said, yep, that's it, let's go, let's roll. Well, that's my next slide. No. But I think that's it for my slides. What I want to do more than anything, the Slido questions are fine, but I love just open interactive questions. So I don't know, Rose is probably going to be shooting me daggers, but any questions? Was that helpful to walk through or not? I'm seeing a lot of nodding heads, so I'm hoping it's helpful. But what I would also say is, I don't know that I have the secret recipe. I just know the experiences I've had, what I've learned, and if I could be prescriptive at all, those were the points that I really wanted to stress to everybody that I've learned over the years. So yeah.
Before we get into questions.
And I know I'm close on time.
This is not a planted question, I promise. Is there a particular time where you changed an executive's mind, and how did you do that? Was it with metrics and data? Was it with the story? Was it with the customer?
Ooh, Brittany asked, for anyone in the back, was there a particular time where I changed an executive's mind? Was it with metrics or data, or what did I use? Y'all, get your data in order. Know your data. Data is going to be your ticket and your, literally your fast track to any of your C-level, any of your ELT. You come armed with data coupled with stories, you're never gonna fail. So I am a big driver of dashboards. I love dashboards because most of them you can have somewhat real-time data. I can go peek at a dashboard right before I run in a meeting. I'm like, oh, cool, I know the conversion rate. Or, oh, I know what our revenue influence is for X, Y, or Z. That is amazing. We're currently building those dashboards right now. They don't exist yet, but so yeah.
I think that actually helps distinguish the difference between competent and cocky. Competent person goes in knowing they have the resources, the knowledge, they've done their homework to have these conversations. Cocky person goes in talking like they have nothing to back it up. Mm-hmm. Don't go in without your homework is what you're saying.
Well, I would say, case in point, when I would bring some of my ideas forward at Oracle, I didn't come with data. And I think that's, well, besides the bureaucracy that existed at Oracle, I think that's what I sold myself short from that point of view.
And you get frustrated, but you're like,
Very frustrated. I mean, I was so close to going back down the AE route, which didn't love that. Got one salesperson in the house, don't need a second. So, yeah.
Got one right up here front.
I'm curious how you said you started in the sales org and then moved over to marketing, and in marketing you had the budget to then grow. If you had the budget, but you were in another department, would you have stayed closer to sales?
So she was asking if I had a chance to have a budget and still be in sales org, would I stay in sales? Yeah, I would have. The reason being is look, I think the CSM org was ticket to success at Genesis, for sure. You can still be friends with CSMs and be in a sales role. But what was nice about being in sales is I had a chance to be on every one of the CRO's forecast calls, hear every deal that was going on. And anyone who knows me, I'm not quiet. I speak up on every call I'm on. So I made sure that they constantly heard from me. And that helped to where when we did move into marketing, we didn't have to go and earn our street cred with the sales teams. We had it. So yeah, but I do like being in marketing though. Don't get me wrong, I think marketing is a fascinating place to be. I just saw the speed with which we were able to enable change in sales was faster than what we found in marketing. So, and I'm at time. I'm over 2 minutes.
Well, do we have a pressing extra question? We've got one in the far back from Autodesk is really bringing them into the house today.
Look at, he's wearing a suit jacket and everything.
Hey,
Oh.
hello everyone.
Going to the Tiki Lounge.
Whether or not there is budget, what ducks do you put in a row when you're wanting to make a request for headcount?
Customer engagement. Customer engagement and customer engagement. Because they're your ticket to economy and efficiency with how you go and build relationships in the field. So we have the model that we use is we build out customer engagement team in the 3 regions of the US, West, Central, East. Then we are going to be building someone in LATAM. We have someone covering EMEA and the APJ, and then we're going to do eventually ANZ. What's nice about that is they are focused on building relationships with the most strategic existing advocates, keeping us from being single-threaded, which I heard earlier. You never want to be single-threaded with your advocacy relationships and your key accounts. You got to get broad. But they also can go develop relationships with the up-and-coming strategic references or advocates, right? So they know who's in their region who are going to be the next big shiny advocate that everyone's going to want to talk to, and they can build a relationship with them directly. What's nice is then when I get a phone call from anyone in the ELT asking for, hey, we need a customer, I need a customer, I'm going to put in my slide deck, I need it to look and feel like this and to talk and walk like that. I put out one email, I've covered the globe. And if every one of those engagement directors have anywhere from, say, 18 to 30 relationships with their customers, that's economy right there and efficiency. So yeah, that's where I start. And then I start building the other pieces in among that. Quite frankly, your advocacy community. I mean, we heard Josh talk about community. That's another secret sauce. So I start with customer engagement, I build community, and then you start, I think of it as a house, my house analogy. Oh my God, I'm going so far over. So sorry.
Oh, it's okay. It's all right.
It's about the house.
I call it a house analogy. You start with your foundation, right? You can't build a house and put your walls up without a foundation, right? Your foundation, at least the way that I've seen it work, customer engagement, your advocacy community, then start putting up your walls for all the advocacy goodness you could do, all your case studies, all of your visible stuff to the public. You go and do your voice of the customer stuff. You go and do your reference fulfillment stuff. And then we also have our briefing centers. So we've got that as another touch point. So those are the 4 walls. And then surrounded by all of that is customers, because the customer's experience has to be at the center of every program you do. If your customer has a bad experience, guess who's never going to advocate for you again? If you wear out your welcome mat, guess who's never going to say yes again? So having that structure with customer wrapped all around, yeah, that works. I've done it in 2 companies now. So, yeah.
It's amazing. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome.